Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Manipulative, power-hungry aunt torments my family for years. Costs her $300,000. After that, teacher hates senior skip day and tries to ruin the fun. Group of troublemakers obey her instructions. And after that, a brief encounter with a Karen at the Ikea restaurant. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to go to Ikea. You can't do this to me. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Manipulative, power-hungry aunt torments my family for years. Costs her $300,000. Players. We've got myself, male, late 30s. We've got sister, who's 3 years younger. We've got aunt, older sister to my mother. We've got mother, single mom, adopted, no blood relation to my aunt. We've got cousins, 3 total, 1 male, 2 female. I have good relationships with them now, mostly. My estranged father, who had been living several countries over, is pretty much out of the picture by the time my parents got their divorce when I was 9. Due to financial hardship, we were forced to live with my aunt and the nightmare of a household we would soon find ourselves in. My aunt married into Georgia wealth, and you can figure out what that means on your own. She had 3 kids and eventually caught her husband having an affair. It's a huge scandal. She gets the house, the kids, and a fat payout from the family attorney. This is important because my aunt didn't do a darn thing in her life to earn her money, her house, her lifestyle, or basically anything. She was born poor along with my mom. Under her household, she was drunk with power. Years of therapy have allowed me to recognize that certain people, when in a position of power, get a perverse pleasure in ordering others to do their bidding. She was the strictest of authoritarians in every possible way you could imagine. Chores had to be completed by an exact specific time. Vacuuming by 3:45 p.m. Dishes by 3:55 p.m. Laundry days for my mother and us kids were Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5:35 p.m. to 7:55 p.m. If it was still running, she would shut the power off for the 2 units. As we grew older, her own kids opted to stay with their father for full-time custody, and she had them on weekends. Even they couldn't stand her when she was in charge and in the house. As time passed, she got them less and less, opting for alternating weekends as high school activities took precedence over time with mother. For my sister and I, the large 6-bedroom house was not ours for the taking. My mom had to pay rent as well as rent for 1 bedroom, as that was all she could afford on her salary. We had to share a bedroom until my 2nd year of high school. All the while, there was 1 spare unused bedroom available at all times. My aunt needed this for guests when they stayed over. Not 1 guest stayed there in the entire 10 years I was under that roof. Finally, the church we attended told my aunt to give up the spare bedroom so my sister can have her own room, as it was unhealthy for 2 teenagers to share a room together like that. That infuriated my aunt because someone told her what to do in her own household. My sister and I got the brunt of her wrath. As my mom's salary was tapped out, my sister and I had to do extra chores like mowing the lawn, trimming the shrubs, cleaning the pool, which we could no longer use without her being outside watching us. My aunt's behavior was becoming more and more outrageous and disconnected from society. For example, she had always snapped her fingers when she wanted to get someone's attention, but it was getting far more frequent, and she would blow up into a tirade if either my sister or I didn't obey. Her own kids tried repeatedly to tell her that the crap she was doing was wrong, but she wouldn't listen. Eventually, they wanted nothing to do with her outside of the home. She was a tyrant there, and repeated intervention to get her to see the folly of her ways would fall on deaf ears. I snapped. All through high school, I had no confidence as a person. I was weak-willed and growing ever distant from friends and society. I say this in all truthfulness and fear that had circumstances continued the way they had been going, I could very well have done something horrible. I was that bad off. I had just graduated high school and started my first semester of community college. I'm 2 weeks into my classes, attending from home, when my aunt drops a bomb on me. You owe me money for this month's rent, the same amount for next month's rent as well. It is the 27th after all. You're an adult now. You're out of high school and working now, so you need to pay rent. The heck? I blew a gasket as I yelled back. You can't just suddenly decide to charge me rent just because you feel like it. I need 30 days of notice. I have rights. My aunt yelled at me some BS excuse that she had discussed this with my mother, and it was decided that I needed to pay my own rent now. In some miraculous backbone move, of which I still have no idea how I stood up to her, I yelled right back at her. If I'm an adult, then treat me like one and talk to me about my rental agreements. I'll start paying you rent in 30 days starting the 1st. I turned my back to her and walked away with my fists balled tight. I was furious with anger, but I walked away. My aunt saw my fists from behind and screamed that I was going to attack her. No, I wasn't. She snapped her fingers at me repeatedly on my tail to get my attention, but I didn't turn around. I needed to cool off and clear my head. As I turned the corner, she grabbed my wrist, yelling, "I'm not finished talking to you." I threw my still balled up fist forward, keeping with my stride to break her grip as I hadn't stopped my momentum. This caused her grabbing arm to slam hard into the corner of the wall that I had just turned into. She screamed, but I left the house and took off. The aftermath of that incident was that my aunt called the cops on me in an attempt to press charges. She was taken to the hospital and suffered a fractured wrist, and she was put in a cast/sling. I don't know, as I never saw it and never inquired further. Her story changed every time she told the cops what happened, while my story was spot on every time. I can still recall that moment down to the smell in the house, where I was facing, the working and non-working light bulbs, etc. Forever ingrained in me. I was kicked out of the house, and I couldn't visit my sister or my mom there at the house again. Fine by me, as I didn't want to see my jerk aunt ever again. I was happy to meet my mother and sister at the local diner or outlet. We could be ourselves there and not hostages in our own home. Years later, my mom wised up and got out of that horrible relationship with her sister and moved out on her own. She got a temporary nice place, invested wisely, and with the help from the church, got help getting a place of her own. In 2009, after the housing crisis, she bought her own place that she could never have afforded on her own prior to the market crash. But some good came out of it. She wept, knowing that my sister and her family and myself can come visit anytime and stay. Over the years, I've been able to forgive my aunt. Not forget, forgive. I've let go of a lot of my anger and hatred towards her that she put me through. But she has no leverage or control over us. She's a somewhat decent person for being a total jerk of a person. My cousins have calmed down, heard my side of what happened those years ago, and know what kind of a person I am compared to what kind of a person their mother is. They chose to believe me and know that I didn't hurt her like she continues to claim. The revenge. While I have been able to forgive my aunt for what she has done to me, I cannot forgive her for what she did to my mother. Kept her in financial hardship for a decade while she sat on a bank account full of cash and assets. Or what she did to my sister. Forced her to pay damages because the water heater burst while my aunt and mother were away one weekend, leaving my sister at home. She didn't discover the flooded room for hours. My aunt's reasoning, it was her responsibility to wash the house. Not the responsibility of the homeowner to maintain/replace the water heater before it goes. Let's leave that upfront $5,000 financial burden before the flood insurance kicks in on a 16-year-old. I've had little to no contact with my aunt since I was kicked out of the house nearly 2 decades ago, but I do keep in constant contact with my cousins. While I'm not going to divulge what I do for a living, I can say that I work with and for the government. I've worked my butt off getting to where I am today. I'm known for being truthful, wise, and giving good advice when needed. Because of this, I often talk financially with my cousins, all of whom are money smart and are doing well for themselves. They often then relay this information to their scheming mother, who has no mind for business and investments. All that money she got from her house sale, her divorce settlement, her previous investments is pretty much gone. I spent years planning on the perfect trap, and it took a long time to prepare everything to make sure everything appeared right. I am not a lawyer, and I don't pretend to know the law, but I do know the regulations and laws pertaining to insider information. This is not that. 100% certain of it, and if I ever go to court, I know my lawyer has a solid case in my defense. But is this a gray area? Most definitely. I let it slip to my cousins about some future real estate plans near my aunt's new area of living. It may be worth a lot more because of future development taking place in that area. All of that was true and backed up by what was in the newspaper and new construction signs that newly appeared on Google Maps at the time. The rest was fabricated by myself, backed up by actual information I looked up on real estate websites and on projects I was working on through my work. The telephone game takes place, and a few weeks later, I presume, my aunt starts making phone calls to real estate agents trying to buy lots of land in the undeveloped, crappy area of her new house. Over the course of a few months to a half a year, she spends $300,000 of her last remaining savings on land, hoping it will pay out when the area around it gets developed in the upcoming years. Only HUD/government/city doesn't have any plans to develop in those immediate areas. In fact, analysis showed that building in those areas was poor planning and would cost the taxpayers twice to 3 times as much as the land was not environmentally sound. It was best to build 6 miles away. This post was long overdue because it's been over 2 years since my aunt purchased land that is basically worthless. See, she won't sell the land unless she gets at least the same price she paid for it because she's the owner of that land. Can't tell her what to do on her own land? Sweet. Karma strikes in a way I couldn't possibly have foreseen. My cousin informed me that the value of the land has decreased significantly because it's not environmentally sound to build anything commercial there, but it's zoned for commercial use. Currently, 3 out of the 4 blocks of land she purchased are just farms next to eyesore abandoned buildings or industrial complexes. Nobody can build on it, and nor does anyone want to buy it. Sucks to be her. Best part is, my cousins have absolutely no idea that I set them up for their mother to take the fall. These environmental results are relatively new and the perfect cover to say why the project changed locations 6 miles away. Have you ever had an aunt or an uncle be a jerk to you? If so, what were they doing? Please let us know. I want to meet their aunt. She sounds like my kind of gal. Teacher hates senior skip day and tries to ruin fun. Group of troublemakers obey her instructions. My dad and I were talking about our respective days in high school, and he shared how he and his buddies got back at their grouchy old math teacher, Mrs. Schaefer. According to Dad, Mrs. Schaefer was the best teacher he had ever had, and he and his buddies gave her endless grief, including using the phone in the classroom to pull a prank on another one of their pals. However, she took things way too seriously. She was stern, strict, and was the kind of person who could never take a joke. Everything had to be done exactly right. Of course, Dad and his buddies, being teenagers, saw her as someone who could use livening up and gained reputation as class clowns. He told me that Mrs. Schaefer probably thought he and his friends were going to be criminal masterminds or something. Every year at this high school, they'd have senior skip day, with every senior looking forward to because, hey, it's a day away from school. Mrs. Schaefer and her grouchiness detested senior skip day and decided to ruin everyone's fun during my dad's senior year. To this day, Dad swears that she picked that year because of the shenanigans he and his pals got into. She announced that there would be a test on this day. Not only that, but anyone who skipped the test because of senior skip day would get a 0, which would affect their grade average. Dad, who had a scholarship lined up at his dream school, was mad. If he missed the test, his grade average would be affected, risking his scholarship. However, he had been waiting every day for 4 years for senior skip day. So he and his buddies came up with a plan and give Mrs. Schaefer the most grief she had ever had in her entire life. Senior skip day rolls around. Dad and his buddies went to play golf early in the day as their test was scheduled in the afternoon. Once they finished their game, they hurried to the school, not even bothering to change out of their golfing clothes. However, this became a big problem. One Dad admitted he and his friends didn't think of. For those who don't know anything about golf shoes have little cleats, spikes, on the soles to help grip on rough terrain. However, wearing them and walking on tile floors is a bad idea. One of them was smart and took off his cleats, but the rest of them were stubborn and insisted on trying to get to Mrs. Schaefer's room in their cleats, which was on the 2nd floor and on the other side of the building. They were slipping, sliding around, grabbing the walls, and laughing so hard. Everyone poked their heads out of the classrooms and were confused at the sight of these 4 guys trying to walk to the classroom in their golf cleats. Somehow, they managed to get down the hallway and up the stairs without breaking their necks and made it to Mrs. Schaefer's room. There was now a new problem. While the hallways had tiles, the classrooms themselves had wood floors, which resulted in the cleats getting stuck. They were clomping around, making a racket trying to get to their desks. Everyone else in the classroom looked up and laughed so hard. Everyone, that is, except Mrs. Schaefer. She was beet red and looking like she was going to drop dead of a heart attack at the sight of these 4 idiots, as my dad put it, clomping into the room, dressed for a round of golf and laughing as if they heard the best joke in the world. Mrs. Schaefer yelled, "What are you doing?" and pointed to the once perfect wooden floor, which now had holes in them. Dad, who had calmed down enough, shrugged his shoulders and said, "We had time between rounds of golf to take the test, so here we are." Mrs. Schaefer, realizing that they did show up to take the test as she had told them, and that her own ploy to get back at them had backfired, calmly told them to take their seats and gave their test to them, glowering at them the whole time. When they were done, they clomped back out before slipping and sliding around to catch their next tea time. At least Mrs. Schaefer was fair. Dad passed the test and kept his scholarship. To this day, those holes are still in the wooden floors. Have you ever had a teacher who couldn't take a joke? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
They're lucky I wasn't the teacher.
A brief encounter with a Karen at the Ikea restaurant. So today, my husband took me shopping at Ikea for some random items we needed, but were unable to get due to previous public gathering restrictions. We decided to make a day out of it and grab some lunch at the Ikea restaurant while we're at it. Now, for clarification, due to what's going on, there's certain rules and procedures to be followed in Ikea, meaning that now you stand in queue, first to get your table number, then move forward to order and go take your designated seat, and one of the server wheels your food to you. All fine and dandy. We stand in line to get our table number, though the queue is kind of long, and we're considering scrapping this idea and just go eat elsewhere. Right next to the window is a giant menu with items offered in the Ikea restaurant. The usual, meatballs, salmon, salads, and the like. In front of us stands a Karen with a kid in a stroller, which looked to be around 4. Karen stares at the menu and looks over at the restaurant employee handing out table numbers. Karen,
Do you have any chicken McNuggets?
silence. The employee is staring at her. We're staring at her. God and evolution are arguing in the background about whose fault this brain fart is, given that they are usually not served here at all. And the giant picture menu is quite clear on that subject. Not to mention that McNuggets are kind of a different restaurant chain's gig. Employee. No, we don't. I'm sorry. Karen.
You don't? What kind of a kid-unfriendly restaurant is this? My kid doesn't want to eat anything on your menu.
Employee. I'm sorry, madam. The menu you see to your left is all that is offered. Karen huffs, grabs the table number, and moves forward. The employee glances over at us, gives us a table number, and goes, "Oh, pardon me. Madam is pregnant. You don't wait. Please, just step here to the side and follow my colleague. He'll take you to the register so you can order." Karen head whips around so fast I thought it might fall off. Her face is a picture of shock at the unjust treatment. She glares at my 8-month pregnant belly, then at the employee and screeches,
I have a child as well.
The employee, now with another one on tow, stares at her blankly and goes, "Yes, but your madam here is pregnant." I can sense him struggling not to say, "Well, you pushed yours out a while ago, didn't you?" As we leave with the other server, I can still hear her in the background, arguing that she has a kid and should be given the same treatment as a pregnant woman, while the IKEA employee is still patiently trying to explain to her that it's company policy that disabled people and pregnant women have the right to cut queue, and unless she or her son is disabled or she herself is pregnant, she can't cut in. 20 minutes later, we're done with our food and we stand up to leave. I spot Karen still in queue, third in line from the register, glaring at us. I resist the urge to wave and just pat my belly happily, then waddle away with my husband. I have no doubts that IKEA is getting a bad review on Yelp or something due to not serving McNuggets and not letting her entitled self cut in line, even though she played the kid card fairly early on. Do you like going to IKEA, or can you not stand the place? Please let us know.
Oh, I love IKEA. I want you to get me a gift card soon, Mr. Reddit.
Entitled parent tries to claim my stuff for her kid. Backstory. Back in 2013, my stepsister, entitled mom, 30, had an accident and couldn't care for herself for a while, so her and her son, entitled kid, 10, came to live with us. I did not live at the house most of the time, so I offered them my bedroom so they would be more comfortable. The room had a TV and a PlayStation 3 that I had saved up for and bought with my own money, plus a variety of games I also bought. I had saved a long time for it and did not normally let my little cousins or others play it to avoid them breaking anything. There are a lot of other things that have happened, but this stands out to me. Over the course of Entitled Mom living with us in my old room, Entitled Kid has slowly decided to claim the items of my room as his. Things like old Nerf guns I had, electronics, and all sorts of other things I had in there. Most of the time, when Entitled Kid is using something I don't want him to, I go and ask him nicely to stop. This is immediately met with Entitled Mom intervening and allowing Entitled Kid to claim whatever item. Usually, I'm too exhausted to dispute it, and I know they will move out eventually, so I just let him have it for now. However, some items are worth fighting for. A while after they both moved in, we had a small family get-together, and one of my nephews came to stay the night to hang out with me and Entitled Kid, who was his cousin. Usually, when my nephews stayed over, I would let them play on the PS3 later in the evening when things have wound down, and this is what happened this evening. Since the PS3 was in Entitled Kid's room, my old room still, I let Entitled Kid and my nephew play in there without me bothering them. Soon, I heard my nephew getting upset, and since he is younger, plus Entitled Kid tends to bully him sometimes, I decided to peek and see what was happening. I watched for a short time and noticed that Entitled Kid was not allowing my nephew to play the PS3. This annoyed me for several reasons. 1. Entitled Kid has lived in that room for months now and only plays it when others are over because he hates sharing. If he actually wanted to play, he would do it on his own too. 2. My nephew does not have any consoles at home, so he does not have many opportunities to play. 3. He would only play single-player games I had when I had several two-player games they could play. Back to the first reason of him not wanting to share. I went in and told Entitled Kid to either give my nephew a turn to play or put in a two-player game. Entitled Kid relented after a bit and gave my nephew the controller, so I left after telling them to take turns. Then, while standing in the doorway, I hear a thud and look back, and Entitled Kid has ripped the controller out of nephew's hands. This upset me because of reason 2 above and what I had just asked them to do. So I go in and make him give nephew the controller back, and I sit down with them and joke with them a bit to lighten the mood. They are taking turns and all seems good as new, so I get up to leave again. Again, as soon as I'm out of the room, Entitled Kid rips the controller from nephew. Now I'm mad and tell him he needs to shut off the PS3 or leave the room so nephew can play in peace. Entitled Kid refuses both and says he doesn't have to listen to me. So I walk over and shut off the PS3 for him and offer my nephew to come swimming with me instead. This is when Entitled Mom comes in. Entitled Mom heard me basically tell her kid, no, which is fighting words for her. She rushes into the room and says I can't tell her son what to do, and he doesn't have to share the PS3 since it's his. She then tells me I need to leave her son's room and stop bothering him. I wheeled around and snapped at her and told her that everything in there is mine, that I bought with my money, and if I have to, I'll take the TV and the PS3 and set them up in my new room, which was the den, and my bed was the couch. And nephew and I will play while Entitled Kid won't be allowed to bother us. I also said that if I did that, I wouldn't bring them back and Entitled Kid would not be allowed to play it again while he lived there. She fought with me on this for several minutes until my dad, whose house we were in, had to step in. Once my dad stepped in and sided with me, but more assertively, Entitled Mom is forced to admit defeat and slinks away. Nephew is upset, so to make him feel better, we go night swimming and then had some ice cream, so he was still able to have a fun visit. Thanks for reading. Would you ever let an entitled sister-in-law and her brat stay with you? And if so, why? Or why not? Please let us know.
She was right. If her son was staying in that room, he gets to decide who plays the PS3.
You're a bad influence, so I'm gonna ruin your wedding. We've got evil mother-in-law, we've got fiance, and we've got me. Some history. Me and my fiance have been together since we were 13, and when we were kids, we made mistakes together. Note how I say that. We would mess around, make a mess, and all over be little butts. Now, I have bipolar depression, so my moods tend to go haywire, and at this time I was recently diagnosed and had absolutely no control along with the wrong medicine. So me and him got in a bit more trouble when we were 14. Now I will admit, sometimes it was my fault, and sometimes it was his fault, though mostly it was us combined. But to his mother, I was the bane of her existence. I was taking her son down the wrong path. I was a horrible human being, and me being around him would cause him to get mental and yada yada. You get the picture. When we were 16, we broke up because she forced him. I only found out about this recently, but apparently she threatened to kick him out if he didn't break up with me. When we were 18, we rekindled and started dating again. Now she had calmed down a bit, but was still psycho. On my 20th birthday, he proposed to me, and obviously I said yes. Now that everything is caught up, on to why I am posting this, and why the title is as it is. Me and him are set to get married in the winter of next year. Her way of finding out we were engaged was her RSVP because we didn't tell her and waited to post it on Facebook till after she got that for fear she would try to do something. Once we posted on Facebook and let everyone know, she comments, "I do not approve." Okay, fine. We don't care. I posted a few pictures of failed wedding dresses on Facebook, and she commented,
Wow, you're fat. Why is my son marrying you? At fiance, call off the wedding.
on my post, like, jerk, I see that. Anyway, 2 days ago I posted how we picked a venue and are so excited, and then she commented and tagged her 3 sisters
Let's go dress shopping.
with a picture of a bridal store. She's so unbelievably petty. I show my fiance all this, and he calls his mom and tells her off. She's on speaker. Entitled Mom.
I should be allowed to wear what I want.
Fiance. No, Mom. This is my wedding, and you can't wear white or a wedding dress.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's not like this will last. I know it will just be a party and nothing more.
Fiance. Mom, I'm marrying OP, and if you plan to come in white, you're not invited. Entitled Mom.
You can't not invite me. You're my son, and I can wear whatever I want. Tell that jerk because I know she's behind this. She's forcing you, isn't she?
No, she's not forcing me. You're not coming now. Note, this isn't exact words since the convo was seriously long, but it's a summary of the convo. My fiance then hangs up, and she tries calling again and again, spamming his phone with text messages. He's been ignoring her, and I'm hurt, and I don't know how to handle this. We are adults, but she still feels entitled to him in his life. I need help as well as needing to share her entitledness. Entitled Kid tries to take Sentimental toy. Entitled Mom accuses me of attacking him. We've got Entitled Mom. We've got my mom. We've got Friend. We've got Friend's younger brother. And me. Some sad backstory for this. My grandpa passed when I was 3. When he was in the hospital, me and my parents used to see him every Sunday after church. Usually he'd give me sweets when we were there. But one day, he gave me a little white toy F1 car. A race car for those who don't know what F1 is. He passed away not long after he gave me that toy. I didn't really understand or know what happened, being so young. All I noticed was we stopped going to the hospital after church. As I grew up a little, I realized that that toy car was the only thing I really had to remember him by. Sorry if this bit made you sad, but it's needed for the main part. When I was around 10 or 11, a new kid came into our Sunday school. We'll call him Friend, obviously not his real name, and he was about a year younger than me. Friend and I instantly bonded over our love of cars and our shared first name. Friend's mom is the entitled mom of our story. After a while, our moms decided to invite Friend round to my house one day after church. Entitled Mom then insisted that Friend's siblings also be invited, which we said was fine. Friend has 3 younger brothers and 2 younger sisters. When they were about to leave our house, I saw Friend's younger brother, age 2 at the time, clutching a toy in his hands. It was the toy car my grandpa gave me. I instantly went over to him and took the toy from him. Being 2 years old, Friend's younger brother started crying when I took the toy. Entitled Mom turns around and comes over to us.
What did you do to Friend's younger brother? Why is he crying?
Me. He tried to steal a toy from us, and I took it back. That's all. Entitled Mom, looking at the toy in my hand.
You're too old for that now. Give it back to Friend's younger brother.
Me. Normally I would, but my grandpa gave me this toy before he passed away, and it's all I have to remember him. It's too sentimental to give away. Entitled Mom.
You're too young to know what sentimental means. Give him that toy.
I said no. It's my toy. At this point, my mom comes over. My mom. Entitled Mom, what's going on?
OP stole a toy from Friend's younger brother, and he's trying to claim it's his.
My mom looks concerned and looks at the toy in my hand. Is that Grandpa's toy car? I nod. My mom. I'm sorry, but this is OP's. His grandpa gave it to him in the hospital not long before he passed away. And since OP was 3 at the time, it's really the only thing he has to remember him by. Entitled Mom went from frustration to pure anger.
Friend's young brother needs it more than OP. I'm a full-time single mother. so I can't afford to buy toys for all my children.
At this point, she had a brand new 9-seater minibus and smoked at least a pack of cigarettes a day. The irony, man. The irony. My mom. I'm sorry. I'm sure OP wouldn't mind giving you some of his old toys he doesn't play with anymore. I actually wouldn't have either. Entitled Mom went from angry to WBC level angry, as in stupidly angry over nothing.
No! You are the rudest, most selfish people I've ever met. You probably broke his wrist when you took the toy from him, you selfish little jerk.
He had stopped crying by this point. If I had broken his wrist, he'd still be bawling. I didn't even touch him. I just took the toy from his hands. Entitled Mom got her kids in the car. The older two, Friend and his older sister, went with their heads in their hands and sped away. Me and my mother spent the rest of the day confused as to how someone can be so entitled. For the next few years, Friend still came along to Sunday school, and we still chatted. Entitled Mom would always shoot me and my parents death glares whenever she saw us in church, and she'd always take her kids out of Sunday school as soon as the service ended. Sunday school often ran on 10 or so minutes after the service ended, so that I couldn't chat to Friend any more than she could help. They moved to the United States not long after Friend turned 13. Hey Karen, can you read us our new review we just got on iTunes?
Garrett M. says, great to fall asleep to, and great to enjoy during work.
Thanks, Garrett. We hope you continue to enjoy the Mr. Reddit podcast, available on Spotify and iTunes.
Join as a channel member today, or leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And if you'd like us to make a special video for you or a loved one, come visit us on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.